The Trinity process helped me go from a place where I wanted to move and I wanted to keep my job, which was based in New York. At the time, the response I got was, you cannot do your job from Virginia. You have to be in New York for your job. And then I said, okay, well, I haven't fully decided yet. And then over time, with continuing to set intentions about, I want to be able to have both, when I finally went back and said, okay, I am moving now, the response I got was, and you know what? We don't really care where you live. We want you to stay. It doesn't matter where you are. So something shifted, and I really, honor the Trinity for making that happen. I mean, that's the type of miracle that is possible here.
Welcome to Warriors at Work. This is Regina Thomashauer, your guide and host. Warriors at Work is a place where everyone in the workplace can come together, gain insight, encouragement, tell stories, connect, and share wisdom. We are a place of like-minded people at different stages of life, all coming together with a shared interest of enlightening and inspiring one another. If you're interested in going from the predictable to the potent, and you want to find your warrior magic, step into the journey with us. Welcome to Warriors at Work. Hi, everybody. It's Jeanie. Thank you so much for being here with me at the Warriors at Work podcast. So we hear a lot about how important things are, like grounding yourself, setting your intentions, keeping a gratitude journal, and how they're all tied to our overall well-being. What if you had a practice that also created greater awareness, solves problems, and provides you the ability to manifest miracles? Thanks to Regina Thomashauer, actress turned motivational speaker and author, known to many as Mama Gina, she authored Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts, using the power of pleasure to have your way in the world. She created a tool that myself and the next two guests you're going to hear from have used every single day for the last 4 years. It's called the Holy Trinity. It's the idea of bringing awareness to your desires. Mama Gina describes a desire as the interface between you and what is greater than you, something that propels you. She believes that we are all capable of creating our destiny. And me, Carey and Kim, are about to tell you our story of how we too also believe that we can create our destiny. And we're going to share with you details about the practice, what we do with it, how we use it, and how it is allowed for us to manifest magic and miracles in our lives, and provides a space for us to be seen, heard, and understood. This practice is one of my ultimate secret weapons of staying steady and focused and in my humanness. I hope it is exactly what you need.
I brag that I held my own and stood for my wisdom and used my voice in a meeting yesterday. I am grateful for the love and support I feel and the trust between everyone in our family that allows us to quickly metabolize the moods and energies of our house. I desire for work to continue to be a steady and stable platform that provides abundance and security while I continue my internal spiritual expansion.
I brag that my kids are great dancers, and they inherited that from me. I am grateful for technology that allows for us to be here today and having a conversation like this. I desire that the universe continue to bring people and experiences to my life that elevate me to a more evolved way of being.
I brag that I stayed clear-headed, calm, and focused and did not panic after receiving an egregious $400 bill for gas last night. And by being curious and asking simple questions, was able to get to a reasonable answer and resolution today. I am grateful for the ritual of pulling tarot cards and angel cards with my daughter, Chelsea, and the messages we got today of staying the course, expansion, and resolving conflict. I desire to breathe, move, eat, and drink in rhythm, and to be connected with all as well and find laughter, joy, and delight in all of my interactions today.
So, welcome to Warriors at Work. This is Jeanie Kimberly, your guide and host on this journey. What you've just heard is what we call the Holy Trinity. We've adopted it from an actress turned motivational speaker, Mama Gina, who's also an amazing author. And we are here to share with you this really unique and powerful practice as a way to align with your desires, as a way to create and manifest the life that you seek. And myself and my two incredible guests here have been closely aligned to my journey in the evolution of this brand, but also in my life. And this is a practice that we've done for over 4 years. So thank you, Carey Albertine and Kimberly Peyton, for being in this conversation with me today.
You're welcome.
Great.
Thank you.
So, as I mentioned, this is a practice that we've adopted from Mama Gina, who is an incredible author of this crazy good book, Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts. Her official name is Regina Thomashauer. She's also been an author of other books. And as busy professionals, we've been using this process of the Holy Trinity as a way to just get very clear on where we are in our current state and our current experience, but also what we're looking to create more of. And we've been able to use it as a way to not only declare what we want more out of life, but also to witness each other's journeys. And Carey, I want to start with you because you brought this process to our lives. So tell a little bit about the story of the why and the how.
Sure. Well, I had discovered a number of years ago how important having a morning ritual is. That if I sit down and I really intentionally create my day, things tend to go much more smoothly than if I just jump into it. I end up having kind of a reactive, putting out fires kind of day. So I had a process I had been using. It was a little intensive in terms of setting my goals and intentions for the day. And then I was reading one of Regina's more recent books and pared it down to the Trinity, which I feel like it's all you need, 3 brags, 3 gratitudes, 3 desires. And it's a fairly fast process that just puts you on the right track for the day. So I was doing that on my own. And then I really became present to how that process is good, but that when you add in community and doing it with other people, it really amplifies your desires. And so I had asked Kim to join me, and by using voice text technology, we would leave the voice text for each other and leave our Trinities every day. And then we invited you, Jeanie, to join us too. And at first it just started with us leaving our Trinities every day, but then this really amazing organic process happened where we began commenting. And I think that's where a lot of the magic really began to happen.
And what's so interesting is just to that idea of being in community and witnessing each other's growth and evolution. And what I noticed is one of my favorite things about this process, and then Kim, I'd love to hear your point of view, is I always learn something through both of your experiences. So you might talk about something that either I'm currently going through or I've already gone through or I hadn't even considered yet. And I get so much out of the back and forth. But I also love that it's just in time. So if I'm going through something that I'm really struggling with, or I just need to talk about it, like without waiting until 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock tonight to sit over dinner and bring it up to Ross, which by that time, the moment has passed. I probably worked it out. To be able to just hop on there and share with you both what I'm going through or what I'm feeling, and then to hear your experiences back, immediately give me another point of view that moves me through the situation. It's just like one of my favorite things. What do you think, Kim?
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many examples of things that, especially around desires, like if we have one of us has a desire that is, I desire to break through around something, or I'm having this situation happen. And then the commentary actually, like if one of us has had that experience, we get to kind of share that and support each other. And I think that's where some of the breakthroughs happen. So it's becoming, to Carey's point, like the commentary, it's the act of leaving the Trinity to articulate like what you want. But then the commentary actually provides us with support and perspectives that we might not get. I'm thinking about, Jeanie, the fact that you have kids that are older than ours. and Carey's are older than mine. So like, as we progress in these different stages, you know, to have the resources, even if it's just, you know, to think through, for us to be reminded of how we felt when we were teenagers, when Jeanie, you're working through something and revisiting things that maybe we haven't gotten closure on, that could be somehow like feeding back to our trinities as one theme. And then I think just things that we're experiencing on a more, I think, spiritual level. Like Carey, one theme I know that's been present in your Trinity that's really been helpful for us, I think, is this idea of letting go and like, you know, releasing control and letting go, and like what allowing opens up. And I think just thematically as women, you know, that is a real breakthrough, and it's been a breakthrough for us too. So those are just a couple of examples that come to mind. There's like a million others. But I do think there's something in this act of like voice sharing, you know, the act of the Trinity being able to frame up the day, and then being able to be in community around that and helping each other, you know, with what we're putting forth.
That idea of just being really seen and really heard is, in my opinion, probably the most unique and powerful aspect to the experience. You know, Carey, I've never asked, why is it 3 brags, 3 gratitudes, and 3 desires?
Well, it is called the Trinity. So it's 3 threes, right? And there's something I think probably really interesting about, if you want to get mystical, about the geometry of that, like the sacred geometry of the threes. I find, like, more practically, there's something that happens when you have to write 3. You know, like you kind of start with like the most obvious, and then you have to dig in a little to get to the 3rd. And I think that's a really valuable process. I also think it's really interesting that I think we could probably extrapolate from this group out a little bit and say that the gratitudes come pretty easily to everybody, but in the beginning, both brags and desires, I think, were hard. And it like took something to dig in and get to 3 brags. And that as women, that feels pretty uncomfortable. And so I think there's something important about like having to force out 3, force is the wrong word, but having to really dig in and come up with 3 reasons to brag about yourself, and to use that language. I think it's really important too.
And just to that point, we would have no problem bragging and talking about things that we're proud of in other people, and expressing gratitude to them, and making wishes for them around your desires. But there's something about pointing it to ourselves. And I shared this on our Facebook Live, as I really struggled with even the word brag, felt very icky to me. And I didn't really want to do it. And I thought that the brags had to be very elaborate and involved. And then I realized, well, you know, actually a quick brag could be like, I woke up today.
That's right.
And I slept
You've used that before.
I slept 8 hours in a row. Like, it could be as simple as that. And then the desires were also felt very indulgent. Not something that I would even say, or you would put it into a different category if you were using the word desire. And as a very left brain oriented person who likes lists and likes a sense of accomplishment, it just didn't compute. And it listening to the both of you express yourselves both personally and professionally using this model and framework gave me the permission to start to examine, what's that about? Why am I so resistant to this word? And why is it showing up the way that it is? And where else in my life is this playing out? And I share that as a way to look at this. While this is a daily practice, this grounds us, this creates intention, this sets the tone and the texture of our day, it has very broad reaching opportunity depending upon how you choose to pull it into your life. So I say that as a gratitude, because I am so grateful, because it has been such a cornerstone of my experience every day.
You know, I think there's a few things that get in the way for us around the word desire. And I think Regina is really intentional about the use of that word, and this idea that pleasure is something to be honored, and it's sacred, and it connects us to something divine within us, and pulls us towards purpose. And that's certainly a really different programming. Like that's generally, for most of us, not the cultural programming we received. So there's you have to move into a new space to kind of start buying into that idea of desires pulling you towards purpose. I think another thing that is tricky for women. I have a friend a few years ago who I said to her, "So what do you desire?" And she said, "I'm exhausted getting all this stuff done. And now you want me to desire things?" And like, it actually occurred to her as a burden that I asked her that. So I also think it's a muscle that we have, it's a muscle that we've is atrophied for a lot of us. Like, we're so focused on taking care of other people that honoring our desires is something we have to actively practice. We have to work that muscle out again.
I was thinking about the word desire when I was preparing for this conversation. So I pulled out how Mama Gina describes desires, which for anybody watching or listening, this may resonate. She describes it as a desire as the interface between you and what is greater than you. It's something that actually propels you. And she believed that we are all capable of creating our destiny, all of us.
Yeah.
And that leads me to my next question, because when you think about the miracles and the magic we have witnessed in each other, so a little thought for both of you. So for Carey, I have seen you adopt a love of skiing. Remember some of your first lessons.
Yep.
I've seen you do amazing work on the integrating two families, and then your career just taking off and you really stepping into your genius. And for Kim, I remember when you were in New York having epiphanies on a SoulCycle bike around the life you really, really wanted to create, and having the courage to move back home to be closer to your family, and having all this concern around what it was going to do to your career and how people were going to perceive you. And now you've got this amazing, thriving life, you and Chelsea and Richmond. And I witnessed all of that incredible expansion over the Trinity process. And I'm curious, what were some of the things that you both noticed?
Yeah, I mean, thinking about what you just described, Jeannie, I mean, that was actually, sorry, I'll just say one thing about that. And I've got a lot of examples for you guys, but the Trinity process helped me go from a place where I wanted to move back and I wanted to keep my job, which was based in New York. And when I first surfaced this idea, it was a year before I moved, or maybe longer. At the time, the response I got was, you cannot do your job from Virginia. You have to be in New York for your job. And then I said, okay, well, I haven't fully decided yet. And then over time, with continuing to set intentions about, I want to be able to have both. When I finally went back and said, okay, I am moving now, the response I got was, and you know what, we don't really care where you live. We want you to stay. It doesn't matter where you are. So something shifted, and, I really honor the Trinity for making that happen. I mean, that's the type of miracle that is possible here. Carey, in addition to what you said, Jeannie, I think about when Carey moved from New Jersey to Colorado, there was a lot to be handled. And I remember very distinctly, Carey was like, I don't know where I'm going to live. I need to find a house. And she had a desire in the Trinity one morning. She said, I desire to very easily, with total ease and not a lot of work and not friction and not effort, find a fabulous place for me and the kids to live when we want. And sure enough, that day, Carey, I think you made a request on Facebook and immediately got a response that resulted in the place that you wanted to live. And so it was that simple act, with that intention, just made that possible for something that I think was occurring to you as a much bigger challenge than how it actually played out. So that was one example. I mean, there's just a lot of money is such an incredible theme in our Trinity process. And I think money too, also the examples that we have around money show how being really specific in this Trinity process leads to you getting exactly what you want. So Carey, you put a desire out there that you wanted to make a specific amount of money by the specific amount of time, and that happened. I remember another friend of ours who was participating for a while said that she wanted to create $10,000 for herself in a month. And she did that through things that she wasn't expecting, like an unexpected tax return, and I think refunds on some other things and some payments for jobs that she had done. And I remember just being like, this is a total miracle. And that is like, those are some examples of what's possible. There are like just a million more.
Love that.
One funny one was that all three of us were writing consistently in our desires last year about how we all three wanted to stop traveling so much, go off the road and stop traveling. And we were writing about it a lot. And then COVID happened. So I always had this, oh no, did we accidentally?
That's how powerful we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true. I mean, the idea of just, again, witnessing each of you living your life, like I felt like I had a front row seat to how you were thinking, how you were feeling, what were the choices you were making, where were you having concern or fear. And we talked really openly, and still do, about the things that hold us back. Because, you know, one of the things that I really fought in the beginning. So this was introduced into my life about 3 weeks after my father passed away unexpectedly. So I was in a very raw, emotional place. And I originally approached the Trinity as like, oh, that's just another project or transaction. I'm going to just do this as a practice just to get it off my plate. And what I quickly learned is that then I would only get a transactional response or experience from it. But if I would step into it with, I need to reveal what's going on behind the scenes for me to really get what I need, for me to continue to grow as a person and move through this experience, but also to be in service to the two of you. That was like a really interesting introspective thing that came from it that I didn't quite expect, because I got to see the word choice that I would use when I would write things down. I would also notice that I wasn't saying the things I was really thinking and feeling. And it was okay to be able to say all of those things I was really thinking and feeling. And in fact, the more I did that, the more I would be seen, the more I would be heard, the more I felt in partnership with you both. And you would relate it to something that you were going through. And then it would move me through the experience even faster than I ever thought I could do. And I'm saying this because I'm sure people that are listening and watching are like, well, where do I begin? Well, how do I do this? And they'll get caught up in the tactics of it. It's not a project plan. It's not meant to be perfect. So Carey, I'm going to come back to you, because I would love for you to just break it down. How would one do this?
Well, I think that, how it's easier to write a haiku than it is to write free verse, because you're given a structure. So the first thing is I would respect the structure. Like, Regina figured it out for you, so you don't have to riff, really. And that goes back to using the language really intentionally and doing all three, brags, gratitudes, and desires, and pushing when it's hard to get to the third, to just write something. So one example, Kim, I was just thinking of, is the day that you wrote that desire for new nightgown. So again, sometimes we write really minor, specific things like that, and then you got one later that day. But I think it's just, it doesn't, like, one thing to remember is, like, this is not about perfection. Don't worry so much about what you're getting onto the page. I think there's a refinement that happens, and some days we're really much like detail oriented, and some days these are very big and visionary. So I think that's the first thing, just the discipline of doing it first thing in the morning, I think is really helpful. It's hard if you don't do it right away. I think we've all had that experience. So waking up, writing 3 brags, 3 gratitudes, and 3 desires is really helpful. I also think it does really help to grab 2 friends or 3 friends. A group of 3 is great, because it also, the number 3 is throughout this whole process, or a group of 4, I think is terrific. And we use a voice text technology called Boxer. You could use anything, but I like to hear you. You could send them to each other, but I like to hear everyone's voices, and it allows us an opportunity to comment. But it's really that simple. Would either of you add anything from a process point of view?
Not at all. I think the point about don't just worry about getting it right, like, just put something out there, is just right on. Like, there is no there's a prescribed structure that works, and then there's no like way to do it within that structure. Like, you know, and if you just, you know, really can't get to the third, I think, well, no, even so, like you know, we'll make one up on the fly. So, and I, you know, Jeannie, your point about like, hey, I woke up today, like, that's a brag. That's a good brag. So no, I think that's it. I do think, like, you know, the only other thing I'd say is just sort of the, you know, agreement that it's a circle of trust, it's confidential. Like, you know, you want to be able to feel like you're fully safe to be self-expressed. Jeannie, just like you were saying was your experience before.
I think the only thing that I would add is it can be a very transformative thing. It can be very cathartic. You have to think about why, if this is something that's resonating with you, why? What is it that you want to express that you're not currently expressing? And then if you're using that framework, because a lot of times we do extra brags, we do extra gratitudes. I especially do extra gratitudes if I'm in a crappy mood or I'm stressed. You can do extra desires. You can do desires on the fly. Like you get to play with this, because I'm in 2 groups outside of a group that I'm in with Carey and Kim, and they don't leave messages back and forth. Sometimes they just take a photograph of what they write. So it really depends on what about this feels like something you want to do and why. And then think about who are those people I'd want to get into that conversation with. And the trust piece is absolutely mission critical. These are people that you want to be sure want your light in the world and stand for your excellence and your greatness, and that you are going to do the same for them. And I'd say outside of that, just get out of the way and watch things come to fruition. Could be Kim walking onto a flight saying, you know, hopping on saying, I desire that I'm going to get upgraded. And next thing we know, we find out she gets upgraded. Or me talking about, I don't like to fly, still don't, but I've overcome horrendous fear, and sitting in the gate area, leaving a message to say, okay, I'm about ready to throw up, but I'm going to do it. And here are the things that I'm going to do. And then leaving a message when I've landed, guess what happened? I felt really okay. Yeah. And the other thing that's really cool about this is because we're very in step and in alignment with each other's lives and all of the nuances that whatever you're comfortable sharing. Carey, I was reflecting on something that you helped me with, that I was very scared to go and do a session with a group a few years ago. I hadn't slept the entire night and I was really in my head. And I had left a Trinity the day before that I didn't actually want to go do this thing the next day. And that morning I expressed my fear. I really, really don't want to do this. And Carey called me. And because she knew exactly where I was, she knew exactly where I was coming from psychologically from that experience, I was walking and talking to her on my way into the thing that I didn't want to do. And she was able to help me kind of reframe, shift. And it turned out to be one of the most professionally satisfying experiences I'd ever had. And I never forgot the power of, because we're in the sense of community and we've created this space to just be in total partnership and acceptance mode of where each of us are, she knew exactly how to help me. And I'm highlighting that as just really like another side benefit of this community experience. And I don't think I've ever told you that until this moment.
Well, I'm trying to remember. I think I know. I think I remember the example now. But one thing that really brings up for me is, I hadn't reflected on this before, but there's something intuitive because we're doing this every day. So you remember, like, we've been doing this every day for 4 years. We have a lot of understanding of each other, I think. And so there's an intuition about knowing when leaving a comment is what the other person needs and when you have to pick up the phone and call the person. And I'm just, as you said that, I'm reflecting, like, you've done that to me too, a number of times where you felt like, oh no, I actually need to call her right now. Like I need to say, and it's the same thing where it's a lightning bolt of genius because we're so attuned to each other. So it's here, I'm going to give you the exact message that you need. And I think that's really incredible. And again, just the power of this constant reflecting back to each other and the resonance.
And that point, like, you know, that's definitely something that I never expected that is one of the greatest benefits, is that because we are doing this as a daily practice, because we have now been doing it for so long, we can be mirrors back to each other and help connect, like when something that's happening in the moment that might not feel like, you know, connected, or like might feel like an outlier to me, like, you know, you guys might often tie back to be like, oh, remember when you said this back then, or you had this desire, like now that's showing up for you and it's connecting it back. Or like you've evolved from where you were before when you were dealing with the situation based on what we heard you say today. So there's a lot of mirroring and just, you know, reminding, like I even go back sometimes and I'll listen to my Trinities from a couple of days before, just because I'm trying to catch up, and I'll hear things that I'd forgotten about. So I can even like mirror back for myself. So it's almost like this record of like how far you've come and like what miracles have occurred. That's like helpful to remember, you know, especially when you're in moments where you're stuck or you feel like things aren't going well. And then the other thing that is coming up for me now that I haven't thought about before is, you know, I've known Jeanie through Carey for a while. I've known Carey for 30 years almost. And this daily practice stays that allow, and we know we're in frequent conversation outside of the Trinity, but like this actually allows us to stay connected in like an even deeper way. And so I get to hear things that are going on, like that, you know, are just happening in day-to-day occurrences that because we live so far apart, I don't get to see as much. So that's an incredible benefit too, is that we really get to know what's going on with each other. So I just realized that it was like, yeah, I thought we knew each other well, but you know, not for the Trinity. I think we'd be missing a lot of like what's happening in each other's lives. So,
you know, the other thing that just struck me is, you know, we have 3 very different careers, 3 very different lives. And what the Trinity allows for me to do is it reminds me of my humanness. You know, we're all very ambitious, successful, professional women. And so there's like an outside self. And this process allows each of us to express our inside and outside self. And in my mind, you have been such a stand for like my heart, my soul, my intuition, and trusting things that I am in conversation with myself about all of the time. And it allows for me to be a stronger version of myself out there. And it's really helped me marry the two in a way that surprised me. I never in a million years would have imagined that has become such a critical piece. It's so much more to me than just a daily practice. It's a part of my way of being now. How I show up in the world and what I say, what I think, what I feel starts every day with that foundational exercise.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think it's become so that I don't exist without it now. You know, it's so a part of my ritual that everybody in my life knows. Like the kids know I'm doing the Trinity. My partner always refers to Trinity like the Trinity's a person. Like, are you talking to Trinity? You know, but like everyone in my life knows I'm doing the Trinity. Like that's when I like go into my space. So there's something about that too. That's a place I think as women we have a hard time creating some boundaries for our own internal time. And so it also is helpful because it gives everybody around you a framework for what you're doing. They know to leave me alone.
I'll often tell my daughter, I'll be like, okay, you have to just give me a little bit of space while I'm doing this. And Jeanie, just back to what you were saying about how it's become of like the way that you conduct yourself, speak, think. I am really like what I was thinking about when you were saying that is how we got to witness the birth of Warriors at Work and Warrior Magic through the Trinity process. And when you were speaking earlier, I also got something that is like a new thought for me about you, which is you really got to practice vulnerability in the Trinity. Like when you were saying it started off as a task and then it became something more for you. You got to practice vulnerability, which is, I think, a real key ingredient to the success, the brand itself, and the success that you were having with the brand. Like you being able to say, these are the things that I want in order to make this brand work. And then being able to hear, okay, well, I found that person, or I found that resource that I need, or I have that technology now to do what I want to do as part of this brand. And watching that happen with the velocity, starting from just over a year ago to where you are now has been like one of the biggest miracles I have ever witnessed in my life, much less in the Trinity. So I just really got all of that as we were talking. Like, this is, the ingredients have kind of all, that you've gotten have kind of all created, what you have now.
Thank you for saying that. That means a ton to me. And anybody that watched the Facebook Live knows this, but those that are listening now don't know this. But yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of the birth of the Warrior Magic brand and Warriors at Work in a very focused, deliberate way. It had always kind of been out there, but I put my foot down and said, nope, today's the day. This is what we're going to be doing. We're going to ask people to really step into this idea of being more potent in the world. And these two women have been so closely aligned with the journey every step of the way. They have heard me express doubt. They have heard me express frustration, but also elation and sense of accomplishment and joy. And it's no accident, because I believe that everything has divine order, that the two of you are here right now with me in this conversation, that you've been with me throughout this whole journey, and that you're going to continue to be witnesses and some of my biggest advocates, and also pushing me to not be anything less than who I am. You both really stand for my light in the world, for sure. And it's such a privilege to be in your daily lives the way that I am. So I'm so grateful. So I'm going to end this conversation by putting you both on the spot.
Oh,
yeah. I want you to zoom out now to 2021. I would like for each of you to share one big fat desire.
I desire to bring to the world a juicy, big, impactful, creative project.
I just got the chills on my right side when you said that, especially the word juicy. It's lunchtime, so I'm hungry.
The desire that came up for me is I desire a really great reunion in person with my friends that I haven't seen in a long time, including you guys, or several of them. That's my desire. I really just miss seeing my close friends that I would have the privilege of seeing a lot more frequent than I do now. And it's starting, enough is enough. So that's what came up for me in the moment.
And my desire is to have all of the signs, the symbols, and the continued momentum for a show on a platform that perhaps hasn't even been established yet, but that is wildly successful. And I sit here at the end of the year in awe of the amount of people that I've helped. That would bring me so much joy. So look out, 2021.
That's another chill-inducing one.
Yeah, that's great. I have desire envy.
Well, thank you both, as always. I'm just so humbled and so deeply grateful to have you both in my life.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks to everybody for listening to another episode of Warriors at Work and letting us be a part of your warrior journey. You can ask questions and make suggestions for future topics at jc@jeanniecoomber.com. Connect with me personally on LinkedIn and Instagram, and join us on the Warrior Conversations channel on YouTube and at the Warrior Magic Community page on Facebook. You can find links to all these places on my website, jeanniecoomber.com, and most importantly, be sure to tell friends about us, subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Spreaker, and Spotify. It helps others find the show and puts more warrior magic out into the world.